My name is Nigel Ganzon and this is my video requirement for SS102, upper body parts. So we'll start off with the muscles found in the head and jaw area. So I already marked myself. So the one above, this one, is the lateral pterygoid. Its origin is found in the sphenoid bone and insertion is in the mandibular condyle. While the medial pterygoid, this one, the one below, its origin is found in the lateral pterygoid bone and insertion in the ramus and angle of mandible. So the next muscle is the masseter. Mark myself again. So its origin is in the zygomatic arc right here, and its insertion can be found near the coronoid process and the angle of mandible right here. So the next group of muscles we're gonna talk about are the ones around the shoulder.
So I'd like to call my partner.
So as you can see, I already drew the muscle on him. So around this area is the serratus anterior. Its origin can be found around the 8th and 9th rib, around here, this area, while the insertion can be found at the back, in the medial border of the scapula. Next up, we have the subclavius muscle. So it's found here, near the clavicle. Its origin can be found in the first rib and the clavicle. It's this one. And its insertion can be found in the undersurface of the clavicle. Next muscle is the pectoralis minor. It's found right here. It stretches out over here. So its origin is found in the 3rd and 5th rib, while its insertion can be found in the medial border of the coracoid process in the scapula. So it's around here. So the next muscle is the sternocleidomastoid. It's located here. Its origin can be found here, near the sternum and the clavicle, right in the middle. And pero its insertion can be found at the mastoid process of the temporal bone, so around here, which stretches all the way here. So it's responsible for this movement. Okay. So the next muscles are the levator scapula, which is this one, and the rhomboids, which is this big square right here. The origin of this muscle right here is from C1 to C4, and its insertion is in the medial border of the scapula, which is right here. So that muscle stretches along this area. While this big square right here is the rhomboid muscle. Its origin is along the vertebra, and its insertion is in the medial border of the scapular spine to the inferior angle of scapular spine. So it's connected here. So the next muscle is the trapezius muscle, which is found along here. It's a big muscle right here. Yeah, it goes along here lang din. Does not include this part. Its origin can be found in the spinous process of the C7 to T12 vertebra. So C7 is around here up until T12. Its insertion can be found in the spine of the scapula and the acromion around the scapula. So scapula is here. Scapular elevation goes up. Scapular depression goes down. Scapular abduction goes out, and while scapular adduction goes in. And scapular upward rotation, and then scapular downward rotation. The next muscle is the subscapularis, which can be found along this area inside. Hindi ko na siya na-mark because the muscle is found within the knee. So its origin can be found in the subscapular fossa of the scapula, and its insertion can be found in the lesser tuberosity of the humerus, so which is around here. So its movement rotation is the medial rotation of the arm. So as you can see, pag inangat yung arm, the muscle can be found along this area. Next up, we have the supraspinatus, which is found over here. Its origin is in the supraspinous fossa of the scapula, which is around, I'm guessing, here. And its insertion is in the superior facet on the greater tuberosity of the humerus, which is around this area. This is the head of the humerus where you can find the greater tuberosity. So the muscle is here, and its movement, the muscle moves as you lift your arm like this. And so the next muscles are the teres minor, which is the black one, and the red one is the infraspinatus. So the infraspinatus, its origin can be found in the infraspinatus fossa of the scapula, right around here, and its insertion can be found in the middle facet on the greater tuberosity of the head of the humerus. So it's around here, the shaft. It's the muscle connected like that. And the teres minor can be found right below it, stretches up until here. Its origin can be found superior part of the lateral border of the scapula, and its insertion can be found in the inferior facet on the greater tuberosity of the head of the humerus. So the movement for the teres minor is when the muscle moves as you laterally rotate your arm. So dito siya. So when you rotate your arm, this muscle is involved. It moves as well. Next up, we have the pectoralis major. It's this muscle here, this area. There's the pecs, as people would call them. It has multiple origins. So let's start clavicular head, which is around here. Anterior surface of medial half of clavicle. Origin is also sternocostal head, anterior surface of sternum. So it's right here. Superior six costal cartilage, so right here. It's around here, the costal cartilage. And the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscles, around this area right here. And its insertion can be found lateral lip of the intertubercular groove of the humerus. So it's right here. So this is the pectoralis major. Its action, synergistically they adduct and medially rotate the humerus. So adduct and medially rotate. And so the next muscle is the latissimus dorsi. It's the muscle when you flex here. So we have a back view here, the anterior view. Its origin is in the spinous process of inferior six thoracic vertebrae. So it's here. The iliac crest as well as the origin, so it can be found near the hips. And anterior 3 or 4 ribs, so right here, inside. So I've taped the border of the muscle. Its insertion can be found in the floor of intertubercular groove of the humerus. So next we have the deltoid muscle, which is around here. Its origin can be found in the lateral third of the clavicle, acromion, and the spine of the scapula. So it's spread out here. And its insertion can be found in the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. So we're now going to discuss the muscles found around near the spinal cord. So first up, we have the semispinalis capitis. It's found here. Its origin is near the cervical and thoracic region of the vertebra. So kalat siya dito. It can be found, its origin is connected sa spinous process of those specific regions. Its insertion naman can be found in near the occipital bone right here. Here we have the splenius capitis muscle. As you can see, it's marked by the yellow region. Its origin is in the nuchal ligament and spinous process of C7 to T3. So, origin niya dito, C7 to T3, spinous process. And its insertion can be found mastoid process of the temporal and occipital bones. So, occipital bones here, dito siya, insertion, and the temporal bone, right here. So, dito siya, around this area. Next, we have the splenius cervicis muscle. It's marked by the red line, kind of outside. It's actually a muscle deeper compared to this yellow, compared to the splenius capitis. So its origin is in the spinous process of T3 to T6. T3 to T6. So it's along here. Ito yung origin niya. And it goes up here. because its insertion is in the transverse process of C1 to C3. So, packet siya. As you can see, here we have the serratus posterior superior muscle. Its origin is in the spinous process of the vertebra C7 through T3, around here. And its insertion is in the upper border of the second through fifth rib. So, kalat yung muscle na to. It branches out. So, from second to fifth rib, the upper border of each rib, doon naka-insert yung muscle na to. It's right there. So, kung may serratus posterior superior, which is up here, meron namang serratus posterior inferior muscle, which is found here. Sa baba naman siya. Its origin is in the spinous process of T11 to L2, and its insertion is in the inferior borders of the 9th through 12th rib. So, banda dito siya. Just like the one before, apat siya, and it branches out. Here we have the levator scapulae muscle. It's a skeletal muscle situated at the back and at the side of the neck. Dito siya konti. Its main function is to lift the scapula. Its origin is in the posterior tubercles of transverse process of C1 to C4. Yun yung origin niya. The transverse process, so medyo palabas. Dito siya sa may sides na neck. And its insertion is in the superior part of the medial border of the scapula. So, dito siya. Here we have the rhomboid muscles. We discussed it a while ago, but we'll go into it further. The rhomboid major is the muscle here, the bottom, while the rhomboid minor is situated above it. As you can see, may hati na yan, may yellow line. The origin of the rhomboid major is in the spinous process of T2 to T5, while its insertion is in the medial border of the scapula. So, dito siya. And for the rhomboid minor, its origin is in the spinous process of C7 to T1, right above rhomboid major, and its insertion is situated in the medial border of the scapula as well, right above the insertion of the rhomboid major. This is the latissimus dorsi. It's a large flat muscle on the back. Stretches to the sides. Over here, behind the arm, and is partly covered by the trapezius on the back. So, ito siya. Two traps natin kanina. Its origin is in the spinous process of the vertebra T7 to L5. So, thoracic region and the lumbar region right here. Thoracolumbar fascia iliac crest. So, meron din siya dito. Around the waist, inside. And inferior 3-4 ribs. So, inferior 3 or 4 ribs and inferior angle of the scapula. So, connect ko rin siya dito sa sides natin, under the arms. Its insertion is the floor of intertubercular groove of the humerus. So, dito yung insertion niya. Here we have the traps, the trapezius muscle. It's situated right above the latissimus dorsi, that are lats. Its origin is in the vertebra C7 to T12. Its origin is in the spinous process of those vertebra and the occipital bone. Its insertion is in the clavicle, which is situated here. Sa harap siya. The acromion process and spine of scapula. So, nandito siya. Sa likod. Meron sa likod, meron din sa harap. Next up, we have the scalene muscles. It's a group of 3 pairs of muscles in the lateral neck. Here. Dito siya banda. Namely, may anterior scalene, middle scalene, and posterior scalene. So, as we go discuss them further, yung muscles, it goes deeper and deeper. Pero from this point of view, nandito lang siya, along this area. The anterior scalene muscle, it's behind the sternocleidomastoid. Yung origin niya is C2 C2 to C7, and its insertion is in the first and second ribs. So, angat dito siya, around here. Next, yung middle scalene naman, along this area then, it's the largest and longest of the three scalene muscles. The middle scalene arises from the posterior tubercles of the transverse process of the lower six cervical vertebra. So, dito siya banda. It's kind of longer. It descends along the side of the vertebral column to insert by a broad attachment into the upper surface of the first rib. So, first rib, banda dito siya. Lastly, we have the posterior scalene. It's the smallest and most deeply seated of the three. It arises by two or three separate tendons from the posterior tubercles of the transverse process of the lower two or three cervical vertebra, and it's inserted by thin tendon into the outer surface of the second rib. So, yung kanina first rib, yung ito naman sa second rib. It's supplied, so yun yun. It's also occasionally blended with the middle scalene. We have again the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So, as you can see, nandito siya, goes to the sternum and the clavicle. So, its origin, as you can see, facing there, it's along the sternum and the clavicle. Nakakonek yung origin dyan. Yung insertion niya can be found behind the ear, dito banda, around this area. Mastoid process of the occipital bone. And for the movement, if it goes up, it's the muscle involved in this movement. And we look to the sides. Okay, kita naman. So yun. Lastly, for the group of muscles around the spine, we have the quadratus lumborum muscle. So, it's the muscle situated here. Medyo baba siya. Its origin is in the posterior border of iliac crest. So, yung bewang niya, around here. Medyo binaba ko yung shorts. Dito siya. So, its origin is here. And its insertion is in the inferior border of 12th rib and L1 to L4. So, 12th rib, nandito siya banda. And L1 to L4. Its actions naman, alone, lateral flexion of the vertebral column, together bilateral depression of thoracic rib cage. So, inhale. So, yun yung muscle responsible for that movement. Now we will talk about the anatomy of the abdominal muscles. So, we'll start with the rectus abdominis. So, I already marked myself. So, its origins in the pubic crest and the pubic symphysis. So, inside, deeper. Its insertion is in the xiphoid process and costal cartilage of ribs 5 through 7. So, dito yung part na yun, insertion niya. So, this is the rectus abdominis. Yung actions, it moves when you flex the trunk. So, when you flex, posteriorly tilt the pelvis. So, ganyan siya. Tilt the pelvis. Or pwede rin ganun, it's involved in this kind of movement. It's also responsible when you laterally flex the trunk, so you move side to side. Next up, we have the external abdominal oblique muscles, which can be located here. It's said that the muscle is very superficial. So its origin is in the lower outer surface of ribs 5 through 12. So, dito siya banda, the origin niya. And its insertion is in the iliac spine and pubic bone. So, it goes all the way down here. Dito siya. Yung actions niya, unilateral contraction results in side bending and contralateral rotation of the spine. So, pag gumaganon, it's responsible for that movement. So, yun yung movement niya. Pero when you move laterally. Next naman, we have the internal abdominal oblique muscles. So, nandito rin siya, pero it's deeper compared to the external oblique muscles. Its origins in the ligament, inguinal ligament, iliac crest, and lumbodorsal fascia. So, dito siya, around this area. And then yung insertion niya, lower 3 ribs, 10 through 12, and the abdominal aponeurosis of the linea alba. So, dito banda. Yung sa ribs. Yung movement niya naman, just like kanina, side to side. Pero yung kanina, yung movement na pag ganyan, ito naman parang paloob naman. So, side, is paloob. Siya yung responsible. Lastly, we have the transverse abdominis muscle. So, it's the innermost of the four. It's located here. Banda dito siya, innermost. Its origin, iliac crest, thoracolumbar fascia, and the costal cartilage 7 to 12. So, meron siyang origin dito, meron din siyang origin dito, along the costal cartilage. And yung insertion niya is a xiphoid process, dito. Connect siya dito. Linea alba, pubic crest, dito sa ilalim. And the pubis. And yung movement niya naman, it's responsible when you compress abdominal contents. So, when we try to flex, it's responsible for that. At the same time, when we're doing a workout, pag may crunches, siya rin yung gumagalaw pa. This is the brachialis. It's located deep in the biceps brachii. Its origins in the distal half of the anterior surface of humerus. So, dito siya, humerus. And its insertion can be found in the coronoid process of the tuberosity of ulna. Dito, ulna. And its action is like this, elbow flexion. Next, we have the brachioradialis, marked by this red and yellow ink. Its origin is the proximal 2/3 of the lateral supracondyle ridge of the humerus, dito, around here, and its insertion is in the lateral surface of the distal end of radius. So, dito banda. Last, for the muscles in elbow flexion, we have the biceps brachii, marked by the green ink. Its origin is in the coracoid. It has two origins since it has two heads. The coracoid process of scapula and the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. So, dalawang kadikit yan, and then it combines here until the insertion at the tuberosity of the radius. And its movement, it's the main muscle in muscle flexion. Here are the triceps brachii. It has 3 heads and 3 origins. The infraglenoid tubercle of the scapula, posterior surface of humerus, superior to radial groove, and posterior surface of humerus, inferior to radial groove. And its insertion can be found the proximal end of olecranon, right here, process of ulna, and fascial forearm. Its movement is like this, elbow extension. Here naman, we have the anconeus muscle. Its origin is in the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and its insertion is in the lateral surface of the olecranon and the superior part of the posterior surface of ulna. So, dito, bandal lobe sa ulna. This is the ulna. Here we have the muscles involved in our pronation. So, over here, the long one is pronator teres, and here is pronator quadratus. So, for the pronator teres, its origin is in the medial epicondyle of the humerus and the coronoid process of ulna. And its insertion is in the middle lateral surface of the radius, over here. It's responsible for the flexion of the forearm and the elbow. While this one over here is pronator quadratus. Its origin is in the distal surface of the anterior surface of the ulna. So, dito siya. And its insertion is in the distal quarter anterior surface of the radius, over here. And it's responsible for the pronation of the forearm. Last, for the elbow muscles, we have the supinators. It's here. It's 2-layered. Its origin is in the lateral epicondyle of the humerus and supinator fossa ulna. siya. And its insertion is the last lateral, posterior, and anterior surfaces of the radius. Dito siya. Its action is that it's responsible for the supination of the forearm.